He called my work a hobby. In 2 weeks, that word would cost him everything. My name is Colette. I'm 37 years old, Irish American, raised in a mid-sized city in Ohio where everyone knew your business and nobody forgot what you did for a living. I'm a freelance content writer and UX copywriter. I work from home, no office, no business cards, no title that means anything at a holiday dinner table. When relatives ask what I do, I watch their eyes glaze over somewhere between freelance and copy. They smile politely and move on. My brother Devon is a mid-level bank manager. He wears suits. He has a laminated business card with his name embossed on it. He's the one they toast at Christmas, the one my father nods at with that slow, satisfied pride. Devon has always been the prized child in our family, the one they pointed to when they needed proof that they'd done something right. I spent my 20s building something quietly, while most people my age were climbing visible ladders. I went through a divorce at 32, and after that I raised my daughter mostly alone. No safety net, no cosigner in my ambitions, just work. Consistent, invisible, unglamorous work. I wasn't the favorite. I never pretended to be, but here's the thing about being overlooked for long enough. You stop needing the spotlight. You just start keeping records. I wasn't glamorous. I didn't have a title, but I had something Devon never thought to look for. Receipts. And hey, before we go further, if you've ever sat at a family table and felt invisible because your career didn't come with a corner office or a company car, you already know exactly how this feels. Have you ever had someone call your passion just a hobby? Drop a comment below because you are not alone in this. And if this kind of story speaks to you, hit subscribe and click like. There are more stories coming, and you're going to want to be here for them. Now, let me take you back to Easter. Aunt Patricia hosts the biggest family gathering of the year. Multi-generational, loud, the kind of event where folding tables extend into the hallway and the smell of glazed ham fills every room. Everyone comes. Cousins you see twice a year, grandchildren running between chairs, the older aunts who sit in the same seats they've sat in for 30 years. Devon arrived late. Of course he did. He pulled up in a new car, walked in like the door had been waiting for him, and within 4 minutes had announced his promotion and a substantial raise. The applause was immediate. My father stood halfway out of his chair. My mother pressed both hands together like she was at church. I was seated at the far end of the table, the overflow section. Near the kids, I had a glass of sparkling water and a plate I'd barely touched, and I was watching Devon work the room the way he always did. He gave a toast. He thanked the family for their support. He talked about hard work and discipline and showing up every day. Then he turned and looked down the table toward me. Colette still doing her little writing thing, typing blogs or whatever it is. He smiled, shrugged. No offense, sis, but when are you going to get a real job? Laughter moved through the room like a wave. A few faces looked uncomfortable. Most just went along, the way people do when they don't want to be the one who doesn't laugh. My father nodded slowly. Devon has a point. Stability matters, Colette. Under the table, my daughter, who was 13 and seated right beside me, reached over and found my hand. She held it quietly. She didn't say a word. She just held on. I kept my face still, calm. I smiled like it didn't land. But something shifted inside me. Something deep and final. Something cracked in me that day. Not my confidence. My patience. That night, driving home, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I stopped at a red light and glanced at it. A client invoice had just cleared, $18,400. One project. I sat there while the light turned green and just stared at it. Devon's monthly salary doesn't come close to that number. I put the phone down and drove home in silence. 2 weeks later, I found out Devon had organized a family financial planning meeting at our parents' house. The stated purpose was to discuss helping our aging parents manage their finances long-term. A real, formal sit-down. I found out through a cousin's accidental text. A message clearly meant for someone else that said, "Did you go to the meeting at your aunt and uncle's?" I hadn't been invited. When I asked around quietly, I learned what Devon had told people, that I wouldn't understand the financial stuff, that it wasn't worth involving me. He had framed me to my own family as someone incapable of sitting at an adult table and following a financial conversation. The insult at Easter wasn't a slip. It was a pattern. Then came the LinkedIn post. Devon announced his promotion publicly, tagged the whole extended family, and wrote a long caption about leadership and legacy. A cousin jumped into the comments and made a joke about my career. Something dismissive and small. Devon liked the comment. Publicly. I saw the notification, opened it, read it twice. Then I took a screenshot, put my phone face down on the desk, and went back to work. Let them keep digging, I'm just taking notes. Then my mother called. She started gently, the way she always does when she's carrying a message someone else handed her. She suggested carefully that maybe I should ask Devon for a small loan to help cover my daughter's school fees. She said it like she was doing me a favor. I went very still. "Who told you I needed money?" I asked. Silence on the other end, not a pause. Silence. I understood then. Devon hadn't just been mocking me in public. He had been quietly, consistently feeding a narrative to the family. That I was struggling. That I was barely managing. That I was the fragile one who needed looking after. He was building a version of me in their minds, and he'd been doing it for a long time. I was done being passive. That phone call was the last thing I needed to hear. Here's what my family didn't know. For 14 months, I had been ghostwriting for 3 high-profile business executives, all 3 under NDAs. I cannot say their names, but I can tell you their newsletters, their LinkedIn content, their published articles. You've likely read something I wrote without ever knowing it was me. Alongside that, I had quietly built a content agency. 3 contractors worked under me on a retainer basis. My family had no idea any of this existed. My income had been compounding quietly for years. I paid off my house 4 years ahead of schedule. I never mentioned it to anyone. There was no announcement, no celebration, no moment where I let them see what I'd built. I just kept building. What they didn't know was, I hadn't just been typing blogs. I'd been building something they couldn't see because I never let them look. But now Devon was pushing a group real estate investment on the family. He was circulating documents related to our parents' property, framing it as a smart, unified family move. He needed my signature as a co-beneficiary. Something about the urgency in his tone, the way he kept pushing, made me slow down before responding to anyone. I decided to call Raymond. Raymond is a semi-retired family attorney who handled my grandfather's estate years ago. He's in his late 60s now, sharp as ever, and he always had a quiet, steady respect for me that he never felt the need to explain. I trusted that. I sent him the documents Devon was circulating and asked him to look them over. Raymond called me back the next morning. His tone was careful, deliberate. "Colette," he said, "your brother didn't just insult you at dinner. He's been legally repositioning himself for months." He walked me through it. 2 significant irregularities. Devon had already moved to designate himself sole financial decision-maker for our parents, and 1 clause buried in the documents would have quietly, effectively limited my inheritance rights. It wasn't accidental language, it was constructed. The mockery. The exclusion. The narrative that I was financially incompetent. It wasn't just ego, it was strategy. Make her look incapable, and the family won't ask questions when you take control. I felt the full weight of it settle over me, cold and clarifying. Raymond and I began to prepare. Quietly. We gathered documents, bank statements, the LinkedIn screenshot, a paper trail of emails. We didn't rush. We didn't tip anything. Meanwhile, Devon grew more comfortable. At a family birthday party, he made another joke. "Maybe Colette can blog about the property deal. That's about her speed." The laughter came easier this time. He was relaxed now, certain of himself. I smiled, said nothing. Raymond's words stayed with me. Let him feel safe. Safe people get sloppy. Our parents' 40th anniversary party was Devon's production entirely. He booked the venue, organized the guest list, and walked in with the energy of someone who had already decided how the night would go. The room smelled of fresh flowers and catered food, warm and close with family packed around round tables. Devon stood at the front like he'd always stood there. His speech was long. Legacy, responsibility, family finances. He announced the property plan openly, named himself the natural leader to manage our parents' assets going forward, and framed my absence from the financial planning meeting as my own disinterest, as if I simply hadn't bothered to show up. And Patricia nodded from her table. It makes sense. Devon's the one with the real career. I stood up. The room noticed, not because I was loud, because I was calm. I'd like to say something, if that's okay. I had spoken to the venue coordinator that afternoon, on Raymond's advice. My phone was already connected to the party's smart TV before Devon gave his speech. I opened the first slide. My LLC registration. Agency founded 4 years ago. Second slide. Last year's gross revenue, $312,000. The room went quiet in a way that felt physical. Third slide. The legal documents Raymond had flagged. Devon's quiet power of attorney maneuver. Key clauses highlighted in yellow. Fourth slide, the LinkedIn comment. The one Devon had liked, projected large enough for every person in that room to read without squinting. Nobody moved. Devon stood. His voice came out unsteady. You don't understand what those documents mean. Raymond explained them to me, I said. He's outside if anyone wants to ask him directly. My father's face changed slowly. Not anger at me, something quieter and harder. Recognition. My mother had tears running down her face, and they weren't from shame. They were from understanding, finally, how long she had looked past the wrong child. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't perform anything. I just stood there and said the truest thing I knew. I never needed anyone to believe in me, but I did need them to stop signing things without me in the room. Devon's power of attorney filing was formally contested within the week. Raymond handled the documentation. Once our parents understood what it actually meant, what rights it would have transferred and what it would have quietly removed, they revoked it without hesitation. Voluntarily. Their choice. Devon lost his standing as the family's voice and decision-maker. The relatives who had laughed along went quiet. Some reached out privately, short messages, careful words, a few apologies that landed somewhere between genuine and self-protective. I received them all the same way. Politely, without celebration. I didn't cut everyone off, but I restructured what I allowed, who had access, what conversations I participated in. My boundaries became precise where they had once been porous. The night after the anniversary party, my daughter sat on my bed while I was taking off my earrings. She looked at me for a moment and then asked, "Mom, were you scared up there?" I thought about it honestly. No, baby. I'd already done the hard part alone. Standing up was easy. A few days later, my parents asked if they could visit my home office. Not to check on me, to see it. For the first time in years, they asked about my work. Actually, asked. My mother sat at my desk and looked at my second monitor and said, "I didn't know it looked like this." The moment they called my work a hobby, they handed me a reason to show them everything. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was just done being small for people who never deserved my silence. If someone in your life has ever made you feel like your work doesn't count, like your hustle is invisible, like your path isn't legitimate because it doesn't look like theirs, this one was for you. Tell us in the comments. Has your family ever underestimated you? What happened? We read every single one. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. And click like to help this story reach the people who are still sitting at the far end of the table, waiting to be seen. If this story hit close to home, there is another one you need to see next. A woman who was removed from her own mother's will the night before the funeral and what she discovered inside the envelope they didn't want her to open. It's already uploaded. Click it now and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss what's coming.